So today I'll be talking about the power of having a speak-up culture, having environments where employees' voice is welcome, and it's really good for business.
Wow. What? Okay. Red light means we're on. And we're live. We're live. We're live. We're here.
We're here. We're live.
Live from our basements. Hello, LinkedIn universe. So good to have so many of you here. Hello, everyone. Steven Dulski here. Delighted to be with you again. Hello. Enter stage left.
I was getting my power cord.
Nice. Hello, everyone. If I've yet to meet you, I'm Shed. I'm so pleased to be with Jennifer Dulski today. We were a few minutes late because we had a tech issue, but alas, we're here. And I'm so pumped to be speaking with you, Jen. You've become a new and fast friend, and we got some stuff cooking up together. And now we're today talking about the evolution of teams.
Yep.
You're the CEO and founder of Rising Team. And you've just come out with this report that just dropped yesterday. Is that right? You just released it?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, on the evolution of teams. And I was joking as we were going through our tech difficulty just a moment ago about the rise and how the new normal are remote teams and hybrid teams. And we were having trouble having the technology work for us, but we figured it out. So we're here.
Right.
So welcome, Jen. How are you?
Doing great. And I also, in addition, in the fun work from home saga, they are trimming my trees right outside my house today. So we'll see how the sound works. But when I thought this morning, there could not be a louder noise outside my house right now.
Well, right now we don't hear it. We'll let you know if we do, and if it gets in your way, I'm very sorry. But as of now, we're all clear. So just give us a little bit of intro. A mutual friend of ours, Brian Wish, I believe, introduced us. That's a broken record for me because Brian has introduced me to so many people. But yeah, we spoke and just connected. And the first time we spoke, you started telling me about Rising Team and the work that you're all doing to create these like amazing kits to have teams come together and work on something without needing to hire or bring in an external facilitator. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And so we're exploring potentially going to cook something up there together. But yeah, give us just like an intro into who you are, what has gotten you up until this point, this day of your life. And then we'll dig into the report and share the findings with everyone listening here.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Jen Dulski. I've spent the past 25 years leading teams of different shapes and sizes at organizations of different shapes and sizes. I actually started by founding a nonprofit, and then I got into tech. I spent many years leading big teams at three of the big tech companies, first Yahoo and then Google and then Facebook. And I've done several startups. And for me, the through line has always been the organizations were more successful when the teams were more successful. And I love bringing together groups of people as teams. But as a founder, I'm essentially building the product I wish I had as a leader of teams over the past 25 years. And
love it.
Part of the reason is, I love learning. I always love getting coaches and being sent to trainings and reading leadership books and so forth. But I describe it like I always felt a little bit like it was being taught to fish and then going back to the lake, which was my team, with like a binder instead of a fishing pole. What I wanted was tools to bring to life the concepts I had learned. And that just didn't exist in the marketplace. So we give leaders and managers lots and lots of information, but we don't give them tools to then transfer that information. And, people like you are excellent at facilitating and teaching people new things and writing these books, but then it's hard, they can't be you. And so, how do we help them be them? By giving them the tools. And so, as you said, Rising Team is essentially a platform that we call a team development platform. And it helps companies drive up employee engagement, increase connection, scale their talent development by equipping managers to run these deeply connecting, interactive team sessions, as you said, without needing an outside facilitator. And it, kind of walks you through the steps that facilitators would do, like, what are we going to learn today? And let's do a warm up and an activity and so forth. And so that's the idea behind
Amazing. It. Yeah. And you've taken me through, and the team has given us access here at Shed Inspires to go through some of the kits, and they're awesome. So love it. And yeah, I mean, I'm just getting that like image of like, you go back to the doc and you're like, okay, it says hook live bait. Okay, how do we do that? Right.
Exactly.
So good. Great to see some people hopping into the chat here. Please feel free to hop in. Let us know where you're joining us from. We usually get 1 or 2 LinkedIn users, and we get to play the fun game of who might that LinkedIn user be. So we'll let you know if that's you today. And please add comments, add questions as we go. And we're going to drop in, I know Alejandro from my team is going to drop in. We have a link so that people can access the report. So Jen, can you tell us what was the impetus for the report, the Evolution of Teams report? I have some assumptions of what the impetus is, but what got you to do it? Tell us about the report, and then start to share sort of the big findings of it.
Sure. So the impetus is that, there's a lot of data coming out all the time, but the workplace is really evolving so rapidly. And most of the reports that were coming out were really asking just about individual people's experiences. And oftentimes they were really focused on managers. And what we wanted to do was dig in at the team level and find out how people felt on their teams, how healthy or unhealthy, what they were happy with, where they were dissatisfied. And also, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the workplace arrangement question of whether you're remote, hybrid, or in person, because that is evolving so rapidly. And, we're in the middle of these like very intense return to office mandates. And we were just trying to understand, are those going to be helpful or harmful? And so we asked a lot of questions about that, and especially to try to dig into the differences of people who have those mandates versus don't.
So your report doesn't say you should sell your dog and come back to the office. Is that right? Did you see that?
I mean, I did see that. And, it's interesting. When we were talking to various media folks about the data in the report, someone said to me, I think people are no longer interested in self-reported benefits of flexible work. And to me, I just thought that is exactly the problem here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people who are, executives who are forcing their employees to return to the office, they may be thinking, I'm not interested in the self-reported benefits of flexible work, but they are missing entirely the point. Because, I think they believe that there are benefits around things like productivity and connection. And what we see in the data is sure, it makes sense to gather people in person from time to time, but actually the most surprising data, and hope maybe I can show a graph here, is just that people who are in hybrid and remote work arrangements, they actually report not only the benefits that you would expect, which is, they like the flexibility and so forth, but they actually feel more affected. They feel like their opinions matter more. They feel, a greater sense of belonging, which I think is unexpected.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, I'm human, you are too. I'm a fan of in person, and it can be strategically designed. And it, I think like who wakes up in the morning and is like, I want to be mandated today. Like, I don't think anyone wants that. So yeah, I'm really keen. Let's see if there is data or graphs that you want to show and set the tone.
Let's
That would
see
be
if I can
awesome.
do that.
Yeah, and I'll just say hi to some friends here. We have Danielle Farage is here. Danielle, I regret to inform you that you are a LinkedIn user. We have Lorraine in Seattle, Henry in San Diego. I saw someone from LA as well, in Germany. So we have a great crew here. Yeah, Jen, do you need help with the screen sharing
I'm
bit?
working on it.
Okay.
Allow.
Tina's here. Hey, Tina. Yeah,
Okay,
no one wants to be mandated. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and
Yes.
says, manage me either.
Okay, I'm having some trouble. Let's see. Am I sharing
Not on the screen yet. Did you click the present button on the bottom?
I did, and then it said I was sharing. Sorry,
Okay.
folks, new
Oh,
tech.
wait. Let's see. Ollie, are we changing? All right. You're not sharing. So you
Yeah,
can,
I'm not.
so first and foremost, if you wish, for those listening in, you can download the report on Rising Team's website, and Alejandro will drop that link into the chat right now so that you can follow along. But yeah, Jen, do you want to share, even if you can't show us the
Yeah,
graphs, we can
and
try,
I
but you can speak
apologize for
to it.
that. Yeah, so when you think about the benefits of flexible work, when we asked people, is your team fully in person, fully remote, or hybrid? First of all, let's just level set on where people are. We have about 76% of people who say that their teams are located remote or hybrid. So, depending on, you know, we looked at across a wide variety of levels of individuals and so forth, but in general, 74% of people are remote or hybrid, with 56% being hybrid and 18% remote. So that means only about a quarter of teams are working fully in person. It varies a little bit by team size. So smaller teams are much more likely to be fully remote. So teams under 100 people, for instance, have about a third of the teams who are working fully remotely. Oh, there it is.
Well, I found it.
Oh, you found it. Great.
Yes.
Even better. Okay. So if you go down one slide, I'm just talking about that one. Yeah, where you can see that as companies get bigger, the percentage of people who are fully remote gets a little bit smaller there. So only 18% at the very big organizations of 10,000 or more. And I think one really interesting factor is actually on the next slide, which is when you look by level, you have essentially the people who are spending the most time in person are the more junior folks on the team. So individual contributors and frontline managers. The people who spend the least time fully in person are senior execs at only 12%. And
How
so the
ironic.
irony is a little bit deep here, that the folks who are requiring the return to office mandates are the ones who are actually spending the least time in person. And I think that is quite telling. And one of the recommendations we have in the report is to just be cognizant of modeling. If we're going to require our employees to be in the office, then we should make sure as leaders and managers that we're also in the office. And there are some examples, like JP Morgan as an example, who actually, with their return to office mandate, they required all senior folks to come back to the office too. And I think if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it.
What do you think of this? And can you all see my face still, or are we just seeing the screen?
I see your face.
Okay, well, I'm just
I
going
don't
to
know
stop
if
sharing for a
people in the
second, then I'll
chat.
reshare it. One quick question on this. So I'm a really big believer, Jen, that the nature of the work should help dictate where it takes place.
Mhm.
So like if you drive a bus, we haven't created robots for that yet soon enough. Or if you work in healthcare, or like there are certain instances where like you do
Of
the work,
course.
right?
Yes.
So I'm just interested because a lot of times some senior folks traveling to other client sites or having certain meetings, like I'm curious around, like when I say the nature of the work should help dictate where it takes place, how do you receive that sentence?
Yeah, and I think the data would suggest that too. So for instance, we also, if you look at the data from Pew, for example, which came out last week or the week before, their data is similar to ours among what they call teleworkable jobs. So I think they say about 3/4 of teleworkable jobs are now flexible, remote, or hybrid.
Got it.
And there are some jobs that are not teleworkable, right? People who, some of our Rising Team customers, for instance, are, work in bank branches or things like that, where you have to go into the office because real customers are coming in to see you in the office. On the other hand, there are some jobs that I think used to be less teleworkable, like medicine, as an example. And now a huge portion of those doctor visits are happening online. So I think we will continue to see more and more jobs have the flexibility that they didn't before. And then to your point, the type of work makes should define where it is also true of those teleworkable jobs. When do we want to get people together in person, and when don't we? And I think this idea right now, what you hear a lot of is we should get people together for the water cooler. Like, spontaneous things happen and so forth, and we need to be in person to build connection. The data shows that that's really not true. You can, and we see it in Rising Team very clearly. With intention, you can build strong connections remotely. That said, there are some great reasons to bring people together, and brainstorming is a good example of one thing that the data has shown is actually slightly better in person. And in fact, if you're going to do it remotely, they recommend turning cameras off while you're doing it, because when you're trying to look at other people, you get slightly less creative. So they say you should turn cameras off when you brainstorm, and then turn them back on when you narrow down what are the best ideas.
Nice. Let me know if I can reshare the report or certain slides if you want me to do that.
I think it would be good to go to slide 9 and just show the data that I was talking about before about the benefits of remote and hybrid work, because this, I think, was the most surprising factor to us in the data.
Which slide do you want me to go to?
I think it's slide 9.
Great.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can zoom in on that at all, but you can see, so the blue line is the fully in-person teams line. And you can see that people reported all of these benefits more highly on remote and hybrid teams than they did on in-person teams. So everything from I feel trusted, which I guess is slightly less surprising because we're letting you have flexible work, but I feel effective, I feel like my opinions matter, I feel appreciated, those things, and I feel belonging, those things are surprising. Yeah. And again, they're self-reported, but it doesn't matter. Like, this is how people feel, and we need to be listening to them as leaders and managers and helping them do their best work by continuing to do what works for them. And we're not suggesting that people should have 0 days back in the office. If you have an office, then absolutely there are reasons, great reasons, to bring people back. It's the forcing people back at particular times and particular amounts that removes the flexibility that we believe would reduce a bunch of these factors, or just making it 100% in person, which would reduce these.
Yeah, I just love this notion that the sort of to me, there's an intuitive, like, higher baseline level of trust when people are empowered and able to work remote and hybrid. Like, there's just an automatic, and of note, I feel trusted isn't low for in-person. It's just higher for remote and hybrid.
That's right. And actually, if you go to the next slide, you'll see something interesting. So you notice that these are all kind of between 3 and 4 on this page. One of the highest scoring elements in general, and the only one where in-person had a slight edge, was I feel productive. And the point that we're calling out here, though, is that the remote and hybrid are so close here. They're essentially equivalent. And so people are feeling productive in all the work environments. And this was one of the highest rated factors in general. And I know there's a lot happening right now around how do we measure productivity, and things like, should we spy on people's laptops to see when their mouse is moving and when they're logged in and logged out. And to me, that's the absolute opposite direction, because you're going to really reduce trust, and people are generally feeling productive in all these environments. And so rather than get anxious about productivity, the way to measure productivity is to give people objectives, clear objectives and goals. And if they hit those goals, does it really matter exactly what hours of the day they're working and so forth? But this was interesting data.
There was a beautiful, I forget if it was New York Times or a different outlet, and I'd have to dig it up, but I saw there's a brilliant article around like, it tracked your way through the article as you were going through it.
Yes.
And it highlighted some of the dangers, and put any great person in a broken system. The broken system prevails every single time. And so you had people in these jobs that required that they go on the phone or walk away from their machine or something, and they were being penalized because they weren't manipulating their machine the way the machine wanted to be manipulated. It was like a mind-blowing,
I
beautiful.
read that
I'll have
article
to dig it
too.
up. Was it
And
New York Times?
it was New York Times. And then at the end, it sort of tells you what score you got based on how long you spent on different sections. But the other thing that didn't take into account is how people read. Like, some people are very fast readers. Like, I felt like I could have taken a reading comprehension test on that article, but I don't think I scored well on how much time I spent on the different sections. So we really, I mean, that's one of the deep premises I believe in, is the unique nature of each individual we work with. And I sometimes go back to my days as a crew coxswain. You know, I was a coxswain on the rowing team. And, you know, in that situation, your job is to give people real-time feedback during a race in front of everyone else. Like, it's exactly what management techniques would not recommend. You know, you're supposed to pull people aside to give them feedback, but here you can't, because you're in the middle of the race and you have to tell them at the time. But people had really different needs about what they wanted to hear and how. You know, I sometimes say, like, some people just wanted really direct feedback, like, you're too slow, you got to be faster, we're gonna, you know, et cetera. And other people wanted some encouragement with their feedback, like, just a little bit faster, you're almost there. And, you know, those are the things, like, we can look at data like this and it shows us patterns. What it doesn't show us is how each individual is feeling. And that's actually part of, and thanks, Alejandra just posted the article in the chat. That's awesome. It doesn't, you know, what we need to do, and this is part of what Rising Team does, is give managers tools to deeply understand and build insights about each individual person on their team, which is what we need underneath this all.
Great. And just a couple. So one, we call that, Jen, and there's a book on this called Platinum Rule. So it's not right. Golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated, or treat people ubiquitously, or, you know, like the same across all, because that's what the data shows. Versus, you know, what's behind the data? Individual human beings.
Treat people the way they want to be treated.
So that's
in my book too. I love it.
Beautiful. And just really quickly, for those who want to get the report, you can go to that link, risingteam.com/shed. I have my own.
You have your own link.
Love it, Rising Team. That's awesome. And Alejandro, I think that's the link. So you can throw that link into the main comments. That's awesome. There it is. Okay. Do you want me to show more slides here?
I think so. The next section of the report, so the beginning of the report is about, you know, where people are working and the sort of surprising benefits of flexible work. The second part is about, even with all of this and with some surprising benefits, people are still struggling. And I think the call out here that might be interesting to dig into a little bit is how managers are feeling, because at the end of the day, employees need more support and managers are the most stretched thin. So I think if we could share slide 22, that might be a good place to start digging into this a little bit.
Cool. On it. Okay. And thanks all for bearing with us. We're seeing great comments in the chat here. So we're hoping that this is bringing lots of value. Feels like it is over here, but let us know. Okay, this one. Yes, Jen?
Yes. So you can see when we ask people about the factors that they're least satisfied with, and we asked by level, an individual contributor, manager of managers, and execs, the people who are the least satisfied with their own workload are line managers. And they also are the least satisfied with support from their manager. So if you scroll up one slide, actually it's the page before this. If you ask them how satisfied they are with support from their manager, again, the more junior people in the org are less satisfied. They need the most support and they're getting the least support, and frontline managers are really stuck in the middle. And they, their own workload is still burdensome, and yet they have the new responsibility probably of helping care for their team. And it's just a really tough place to be. And that's one of the reasons why we're most focused on how do you create tools for managers at all levels, but especially for that level of manager. And I'm curious, I don't know if people can type in the comments, but I'm curious if people see that in their own organizations, or if anybody feels that personally. We'd love to hear if that's validated.
And Jen as well. I mean, for the most part, managers and senior executives, they've had 10, 15, 20 more years of career. They have solidified relationships. Managers, a first-time manager, it is a completely new set of skills and attributes required to be a manager. Many, not all, but many individual contributors, this could be their first role, or they're more junior in their career. And the world of work has been very different in these last 3 years than they were in the previous. So I think this is also just a representation.
Yeah, it's so true. There's three factors that are really weighing heavily here. One is, as you said, it's often a new role. So people come from a functional role where they're, measured by how well they do at their function. And all of a sudden they're in a management role where the objectives and goals are different. They often lack a lot of initial training and so forth. The second thing is they tend to have more responsibility for the IC, the independent contributor type of work too. Like they're more blended. The more senior you go, the less likely you are to have any direct contribution work, unless you work at a startup like I do, where I have a lot of IC type work, but most senior leaders don't. And then the other thing that's happening, and this is tied, so two things tied to the current work environment. One is, it is a little harder to do this as a first-time manager when you don't ever see your team. So even though your team may love it and it's good for them, it's extra work and harder for you to really figure out how to invest when your team is remote. And then more recently, what we see is all these layoffs are causing fewer managers. So everybody's trying to make their organizations more flat, which is actually just giving more pressure and more work to frontline managers, because they're removing layers of managers, which means each manager is managing more people now.
Yeah. Manage people and also do a ton of work.
Yeah.
Not a good recipe. A couple comments here. Alex shares, so a lot comes down to the right leadership, building trust and effective goals. It's challenging when leadership isn't setting the right objectives or where targets are variable.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, I agree. And it's interesting because, choices you have as an individual within organizations like that, I always say sometimes you can lead from within and you can be a good shining example for your own team and so forth. And there are ways where modeling within the company can be effective. And we talk about this a lot in my class. I did not mention upfront, but I also teach 2 classes at the business school at Stanford about leadership and management. And then the other thing is sometimes that just doesn't work. And it may be time to move to a different organization where you really believe in the leadership and the purpose and values of the organization.
Yeah, and that you feel that they are lived.
Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Okay, back to slides, or what? Where should we go here?
I think so. Those are some of the main points. We could take some questions. The one other thing that I think might be helpful is to go to slide 26. Because one of the things we looked at is if we, there's a bunch of new types of tools and platforms that have evolved to help organizations and leaders in these situations. How do you really understand more of what your team wants, become a better leader, manager, et cetera? And so we looked at a variety of new types of software. Some are newer than others, like engagement tracking's been around a long time, but virtual coaching, for instance, relatively new. Cohort-based virtual training, also relatively new within the past few years. AI-based coaching, certainly quite new. The virtual water coolers that have popped up.
What is AI-based coaching? Do you type a question into an AI and it coaches you?
Is that answers you, basically? Yes. And there definitely are more and more of these coming out. Some of them pair with humans at time to time, so you might have 80% of your answers answered by AI, and then you have a real person check in periodically. There's risk there. There's definitely risk.
Yeah, please sign this waiver first.
Yeah. And then the sort of increase in virtual team building, and then where Rising Team sits is what we call team development platforms. It's how do you give people tools that they can use not only to learn themselves, but to use with their team. And as people are evaluating the things that generally they want for leaders to learn are, how do you learn the information? How do you practice that information? How do you measure whether you are effectively changing your behavior to do what is expected, reinforce that, and then have fun is kind of optional, but it's nice to have fun when you can. And some of these tools are built around that and some are not. So
awesome. Very good. That's great. So that's awesome. I'm glad we figured out a way to share that. That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And apologies.
Oh, good. All good. We're making it up as we go here. So really great report. Check out the report again, risingteam.com/shed. You can get it. If you have any questions, we'll go through the chat and see what else has come up, but please feel free to share comments or questions as we go through. This as well is that article that tracks and your engagement in the article. It's mind-blowing, so check that one out. Jen, anything else sort of highlights, surprises, anything else that you feel you haven't shared yet, just on the process of doing the report or your call to action? Just sort of last word to you, at least on the report itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the main takeaways for us are don't underestimate the benefits of hybrid and remote work. It is, it feels very tempting for people to be forcing folks back to the office. The model that I've seen work really well there is, okay, we're going to agree that we're going to come back a certain number of days, and the team itself comes together to jointly decide. And so this is why we looked at the report at the team level rather than just at the organizational level, because you might decide as an organization, like one of our big customers, they said, generally, we'd like people to be in the office 2 to 3 days a week. They left it flexible at that level. Some organizations will say we really want everybody in on Tuesdays because that's when we get critical mass and so forth. But the problem with that is you remove the key part of the flexibility that people need, because we don't understand what's happening in people's lives. They may have some specific commitment on a Tuesday that they, need to do. And so the idea was everybody 2 to 3 days a week, and then we leave it to the teams to decide. And the teams feel more in control. It keeps them feeling those benefits of being trusted and feeling like their opinions count. And you also get the benefit of a little bit in office time and some at home.
Nice. That's great. That's great. Really good. So feel free, if anyone has any specific comments or questions for Jen as we go through. Jen, what are you hoping for this report, or for what are you hoping will change with this report out?
And the main thing, I think a lot of it comes down to that last chart that we showed. We want to give leaders and managers at all levels an understanding of what the needs are of the team. And we didn't cover it, but for folks who look at the report, there's a whole section on where people are struggling. For instance, burnout is by far the top most recognized pain point for people. But after that, well, actually, I have to say, when you ask them what they're most dissatisfied with, compensation does come out slightly at the top, but underneath compensation, which is sometimes harder for individual managers to deal with, comes, burnout and
reasonable workload.
They want more investment in their own development. They want to feel more appreciated, all the standard things that we know people want to be happy at work. And so digging into those and then understanding what tools are at people's disposal to be able to address those in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming or burdensome. What we want is not to add more workload and pain to managers who are stretched thin in the middle anyway, but rather to make their lives easier by saying, okay, here's what people need. Here are tools you can use to get the insights you need on each person on your team.
Nice.
I see a question from Alex. Yeah,
this is really, really great. Yeah. So our thoughts on work whatever hours you want and unlimited holiday options.
Yeah.
Jen, I'll let you go first and I'll add in anything that comes to mind for me.
Sure. So these are two very different things. Unlimited vacation has actually been around quite a while. And I think it partially has to do with flexibility and partially has to do with some accounting rules that companies about the way they track vacation. But in general, I am a believer in the idea that people should have flexibility. We're sort of flex first, right? Like we said, we were tempted to call the report the year of flex because really that's what people want.
I think it's more than a year.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. We meant like this year should be the year of flex, but you're right. It's sort of like the future is flex is probably would have been a better name.
That's a good turn of phrase.
And I see some companies actually on the vacation point doing things like everyone's going to take a week off. In August, we have a summer week and everyone takes a week off. And I think in some ways those are great because what you get is less pressure to be online if everybody's offline. But to be honest, I don't recommend that for two reasons. One is, again, don't know what's happening in people's lives. People with children or aging parents or whatever might need a different week off. And so if we're forcing them to take the week off that we want them to take off, it might actually be worse for their lives. And the other thing is, most companies can never be truly 100% not working. And so what you get is like 90% of the company is off. And 10% of the poor company still has to work to answer customer emails or, be present in a physical location or something. And so I prefer to not do the sort of forced everyone takes vacation. There are different views on that.
And before we go to the other part of the question, which is separate around, what was it again? It was whatever, work whatever hours you want.
Yeah.
So the data I've seen, and I won't claim that I know the data off by heart, but what I've seen and even experienced is unlimited holiday doesn't work. That people actually people will take less holiday if it's unlimited versus if you say everyone has, at minimum 3 weeks, 4 weeks, people can have more or less, whatever. And creating a culture that celebrates people for taking time off to do meaningful things, which can include rest and relaxation, and celebrate that.
I think that's true. Regardless of whether you have set vacation or unlimited vacation, you really need to model taking vacation because that's the key part is if people don't model it, especially don't model it at the most senior levels, then it feels like it's inappropriate to take vacation. So yeah, that's true. Actually, when I was president at change.org and we specifically chose not to do unlimited vacation, and we had for that reason, and we had teams all over the world where in some parts of the world, as you know, they are given a lot of vacation. And so we ended up with this policy of 5 weeks of vacation for everybody, because that's what the European team members had and so forth. But, there are different reasons to do different things here. On the work any hours, the data, again, would show that people feel benefits from being able to work when they want. We did ask people some questions about that in the report as well, though it's not in the summary, but asking them if they had, specific requirements around that. And I think unlike the location, though, there are some reasons why having people work at the same times does matter. Sometimes it depends what the roles are. So, and what kind of work it is. So for people that need to be working collaboratively, you might say, we want people working roughly in this time zone, or in these hours. For people who have work that can be done solo, I am a firm believer and think that more and more companies will be going to the work whenever model. Because again, I think the companies that see the most success, and you see this in every, leadership book and Good to Great on all these books that have been written, is that if you focus on results, you get the best results rather than focus on the how and when people are working.
Yeah. And focusing on results doesn't mean people work 80 hours a week. I mean, there's something marvelous about going shopping for groceries on a Tuesday morning. Yeah. It's just lovely. Or whenever,
Or like, as an example, personally, my favorite time to work out is late afternoon, which is really hard if you're in an office and you are working only 9 to 6 or whatever. But now my team knows, like I love Orange Theory. I go from 4:30 to 5:30 many days, and they know, like, I'm just not online from 4:30 to 5:30.
But that's like a block in your calendar that there better be a real good reason why that's booked over, right? Which is great. Like that's part of standards and boundaries. And the other thing you mentioned around like an entire company taking a week off based on the reality of the business. Anyway, really, really interesting stuff. Love it. Okay, Jen, anything else we've yet to discuss that you wanted to?
I'm looking at a couple of these other comments. I'm looking at Tony's comment. Yeah. It's a good point about how do you enforce these things? Like you may have some managers who are doing things one way and some another way. And even when things happen that are really good inside organizations, how do you make sure they spread? So this is a really good point. And I think in most organizations, it is true that there will be some variability between how the leaders lead and how strong they are as a leader. The thing that we've seen be successful here is when you have something that you do want your leaders and managers to do and you want them to be consistent about it, you have to put it in their goals. And so we even see this with Rising Team that we have the data to show very clearly that if you do these sessions consistently, and when we say consistently, we mean like once every 6 weeks, so maybe twice a quarter, that engagement scores go up, retention goes up, the sense of feeling connected goes up, like all the data is clear. But if you don't do it, that won't happen. And for organizations to make sure it's consistent, they have to set a goal. Like every manager has to have a goal that says something like support and develop my team. If there's no goal around that, then for sure what happens is people end up saying, we're too busy, we have to hit all these other numbers, et cetera. So we have to put it in their goals. And then ideally you give them specific tools for ways to achieve that goal.
Very cool. Well, I'll put this from LinkedIn user. I think I said it. No one wants to be mandated. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, right.
So good. Well, Jen, I've been so looking forward to this conversation and to like use the report and go through the data and then talk about what's behind the data. So good. And I love the work that you and team did on this report, and that just the work that your team does in general. Oh, cool. It's from Charlene. Amazing. Thanks, Charlene, from your team. And yeah, I know Alejandro and I are so pumped to continue exploring Rising Team and potentially seeing a Speak Up Culture kit in there soon.
There'll be a kit about Shed's new book, so keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, we're gonna build a Speak Up Culture kit on Rising Team so that anyone who wants to create more of a speak up culture and a more psychologically safe environment where people feel that it's safe and worth it to speak up, there's a kit for that coming soon. So stay tuned.
And the book is going to be amazing. And the idea is how do we help people turn the book into action?
So. Yep. So that people don't go to the dock with a binder that says cast fishing rod. How do we do that?
I can literally show you the binders I have from my previous leadership training.
Oh, I know. Yeah. In the binder, the live bait isn't slimy and moving. So
yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Jen and team. Charlene from your team has been amazing in setting this up. So we will talk again soon. We will see you soon. And thank you all for joining us. And check out the report on Rising Team, the evolution of teams.
And will this be online available for people who missed the...
This will be on the web. So you can watch the recording both on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We're live streaming to YouTube as well. So we'll send out the...
And we'll also share a link if anyone wants to learn more about Rising Team. We can give you a walkthrough as well.
Beautiful. Amazing. Jen, thanks for bearing with the tech challenges. Everyone, thank you for joining and the awesome contributions in the comments, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.